Every year, countries increase their defense spending. But do you feel more secure?
Increasing defence spending by £24.1 billion over the next 4 years.
What if spending more money on defense actually made us less secure? Truth is, our defense spending and the global arms trade isn't actually making us any safer.
In this 7-video series, we'll explore how our defense spending needs rethinking and invite you to join our community of modern-day peacemakers.
Security. It's something we hear politicians say all the time.
But what does security really mean?
Have you ever heard of human security? It means protecting things like access to food and water, access to Wi-Fi and tech, good health for all, job security, secure housing. Our focus on state military forces has taken priority over other human security needs. Government budgets show bucket loads of taxpayers' money always goes towards national defense.
How did it get so out of hand?
During the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, manufacturing became quick and very efficient. People had more jobs, and for weapons manufacturing, the sky was the limit. As each of the empires progressed in developing their industries, international rivalry got hotter until finally the pressure popped and sparked the war that would change the course of warfare forever, World War I.
In the World War I, a mere handful garnered the profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War.
Given the post-war trauma, this would have been a great time to use innovation and communication to, figure out peace.
But weapons manufacturing boosted the economy, and politicians realized the high potential for profit, including for themselves personally, from selling weapons abroad. This accelerated during World War II, and especially the Cold War, when the USA and the Soviet Union went head-to-head to become the next global superpower. Their military competition led to a race to the moon and weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear weapons, which pushed military spending and global insecurity to new heights. Even though the US and USSR never officially went to war, they were still involved in violent conflict, just not on their own turf. During the Cold War, there were dozens of proxy wars and civil wars, and support for wars all over the world was given by the US and friends, and the Soviets in arms sales to whatever side would promote their ideals. They were taking sides, providing military equipment and training from afar, without directly fighting. Talk about a setup for the people on the ground, am I right? Even after the US won the Cold War, this didn't stop. In fact, the arms trade accelerated at full speed. States continued to sell weapons and support wars all over the world for profit and political domination. How is that chance of peace looking now, huh? It's time to talk about the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex, or the MIC, is an informal alliance between a nation's military and their defense industry that supplies it, seen together as a vested interest which influences public policy.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
This special relationship between the for-profit defense industry, our government, and the military is vital to the MIC. Lobbying, which we'll explain in the next video, has a massive role to play in this cycle. Together with the revolving door between weapons companies and government and the media's role in promoting militarism, you get the perfect setting for arms companies to heavily influence security spending and policy.
Just to be clear, we believe the armed forces and veterans deserve the utmost respect. We're not denying that. The military spending system, however, needs some work.
This system, as Eisenhower warned, enables the arms trade to flourish with little to no scrutiny. The Iraq War is the perfect case study for this. Referred to sometimes as the biggest waste of military spending in recent history. And it actually made the problem at hand way worse. In 2003, it was announced that the UK would be joining the US in the war in Iraq. Word on the street was that Saddam Hussein, Iraq's dictator, was stockpiling weapons of mass destruction and obviously had to be stopped.
American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Oh, and while they'd be over there, they'd also make sure to overthrow their entire political and social structure, instilling democracy and freedom to these backward societies. Overall, coalition forces spent over $3 trillion in Iraq from 2001 to 2014. And all this time, weapons companies were persuading our governments what military equipment they should buy and sell. I mean, it was literally in their interest to keep the war going.
And on top of that, some of this money went missing. Here's what Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney had to say about that.
$21 billion can be flown on pallets into Iraq. No wonder you're missing billions of dollars. And there's ghost employees, no employees, the money is missing, the money is lost. It's not lost, somebody got it. $2.3 trillion wasn't lost, somebody got it.
Tony Blair himself made millions after he left office because of his decision to go to Iraq. Millions! Seriously, look it up. He profited like many others from this war. After the invasion, to this day, we do not see anything close to freedom and democracy in Iraq. What we did see, however, was torture in Abu Ghraib, where prisoners were humiliated and tortured by the CIA. The chaos of war meant that extremist groups like ISIS could seize power in what had become huge, lawless sections of the country. What's more, many of the weapons these terrorist groups are using are, you guessed it, manufactured in the West. Nice one, Blair and Bush. Yeah, good job. We must remember that our politicians were made very aware of the risks of military intervention in Iraq. Political and civil resistance against the war was huge.
Altogether, between 6 and 10 million people took part in protests against this war in up to 60 countries.
I have never met anyone who wants their country to invade another country and occupy that country, except the people who are so-called fighting the war on terror. They are the ones who are creating terror all over the world.
Since 9/11, terrorism has been pinned on the back of Muslim communities, and the good guys, aka Western powers, went on a mission to find this big, nasty guy hiding away in some desert somewhere to bring him to justice. Criticisms for the war on terror have continued to grow, with some questioning, how do you even fight terror? US-backed counter-terror operations since 9/11 have touched over 85 countries in just the past 3 years alone. From 2001 to 2020, the US has spent an estimated $6.4 trillion on these operations. Jeffrey Sachs, one of the world's leading economists in international development, even stated that the cost to end world poverty could be achieved at just $175 billion per year. This puts into perspective how much money is wasted in our current defense system and how much more we could achieve if we committed to improve these systems.
At the end of the day, the real cost is human lives. Over 800,000 people have been killed as a result of the war on terror, and many, many more indirectly due to malnutrition, infrastructure damage, and environmental degradation. And of course, let's not forget about the 7 million people who have been displaced or become refugees. The impact on Western soldiers has also been detrimental. And on return to the US in 2008, veteran deaths reached on average 17 a day.
The War on Terror, which includes the Iraq War, are both examples of how increased military spending has not made us more secure.
As Veterans for Peace say, war is not the solution to the problems we face in the 21st century.
So, are we going to continue spending our defense budget on more military operations, supporting more wars and destruction, or are we going to rethink security and spend taxpayers' money in ways that actually make us safe?
All in all, it's pretty dead, right? But our community of modern-day peacemakers are working against this from universities, and there's a place for you to join the movement. Thanks so much for watching. Support our mission by hitting subscribe and that bell, and remember, we ain't dead yet.
Hello. The one thing that I think we definitely need to do is demilitarize education. But that means that we got to get the Pentagon out of our elementary schools, our high schools, our universities. We've got to demilitarize our society. We've got to get the Pentagon out of our football teams. I mean, you know, it's just everywhere. Our society has been militarized to the extent that we can be dropping bombs right now, literally all over the world, as I make this recording, and life goes on for the average American person, but not so for the people who are underneath US bombs. It must stop. It's got to stop. And I support demilitarized education.